So you want to study abroad. Awesome. I was a previous peer advisor at my university, so I know all about the study abroad process. I worked there for 1.5 years. And so I advise students basically daily on where they should go, what they should do, and all of that good stuff. The first thing that I'll talk about here is briefly my study abroad experience. I'll probably make that into its own video because I actually had 2 different study abroad experiences, which is nice. So I was an exchange student in England for a semester, and then over the summer before, I did a foreign language in China, which I guess is Chinese. So I had 2 different aspects of what the study abroad programs are, which is nice. So I had a faculty-led. So I actually had a faculty member from my university there, and then when I was an exchange student, I was alone basically. It was all me trying to navigate Europe, which was really awesome, honestly. So the first thing we ask students when they come in is, where do you want to go? So there are 7 different continents. You can probably travel to maybe 6 of those, because I don't think we've ever had anyone go to Antarctica. So it really depends on you, your interests, where you might want to go. So if you're taking Spanish, you might want to go to Spain, maybe even Central or South America, which is awesome. So we have a lot of programs down there. We have students that go to Mozambique, Ghana, to study abroad. Morocco is another location. And then Europe is one of the most popular locations because it's Europe. So a lot of people go to England because they speak English, but honestly, what I learned is in Europe, a lot of people speak English no matter where you are, which is really nice. So we also have people go to the Middle East if you're taking Arabic, and then Asia if you're taking any kind of Asian language or just want to study abroad over there. We have exchange options in South Korea, Japan. We even have somewhere in Singapore where you can study abroad, which is really cool. So once you figure out and navigate where exactly you want to go, what your interests are, then I would say look at the budget for these places. So some places might be more expensive than others. Say South America is probably cheaper than Europe, and then Asia might be cheaper than Europe as well. Europe seems to be one of the most expensive places because it is heavily touristed. Every year I would say a lot of students go there and things like that. So yeah, Europe is definitely one of the most expensive places, whereas less travel places are typically cheaper, which is nice. So keep that in mind depending on what your balance might be. Also scholarships, funding, things like that is really important to do. Thankfully, I had a scholarship to study abroad, so I didn't have to pay nearly as much. And since I was an exchange student, I just paid my school tuition. And since I'm an in-state student, it was relatively cheaper than say an out-of-state student wanting to study abroad. So that's also another thing. So if you do exchange students, your university might have you pay just your university tuition instead of paying $30,000 for the program tuition. I would say the next thing is to look at which kind of program you want to do exactly. So like I mentioned before, we have a few different programs. With exchange, you are an exchange student, which means your university sends you to another university in place of that university coming to your university. So it's literally just a cycle for the most part. And so when you do that, you're just an international student. Basically, if you have international students on your campus that are just there as an exchange students, that's basically what you are. So you're alone. You don't have anyone necessarily there to go with you unless you have a friend or something. So be prepared for that. We always like to say that it is more independent based. So it's more like one-on-one. So it's just you, no one else. It's up to you to find housing, all this good stuff for the most part. The university might help you, which is nice. So the university I studied at actually had housing just for international students, which was really nice. So that made it a lot easier. And then we also have the external programs. So those are the programs that you see online, such as USAC, CIEE, all those that you pay to go abroad. And so you pay them to get the classes, they send you the transcript, all that. Sometimes they are with the university, sometimes they are just in their own little study abroad, locations within the city. So it really just depends on the program. Programs range in price depending on where you go, what city. Some programs are definitely more expensive than others. Cheaper ones for just a little bit different location than what you might want it. So instead of going to London, you might go to an outside city So some go to Brighton, which is exactly where I did my exchange program, and honestly, might be cheaper to do that one than the exchange program that I did after I looked at it. So that's just another thing to keep in mind is which program you want to do. There are pros and cons to all of them, but roughly they're all about the same. They're also there to make money. So that's just another thing to factor in is like, they're still a business, they want to make money, they want your business for the most part. And then the next thing I would say would be figure out what classes you need to take and how they might transfer back to your university, because you don't want to go abroad, take this class for a full semester, and then have it not transfer at all back as anything. So it's just like, oh, you have 3 hours of general elective credit. So that's always something to consider. For me as an exchange student, I made sure my classes counted towards my communication major. So I looked online to see what students in the past have taken, and then I wrote it down, and they would come back as that credit for sure, because we have that on our university like directory website thing. So you can see what other students have taken while they were abroad, which is really nice. So that was really handy to have. But yeah, be wary of what classes you might want to take, because if you do take one that no one has taken yet, you might need to talk to the department chair, get it approved, to get it signed off. Because once they have that signature, it's like, oh hey, this course does count as credit, you're good, you don't have to worry about anything, which is really nice. So you have that reassurance of, okay, you're gonna get credit and all that. And then typically for external programs, they have the classes listed online, what they might be offering for that term or for that year. And then you can always request a syllabus and then take that to the department chair, department head, whoever you need to get that approved, which is not bad. It can be a little challenging depending on how fast they reply back and how fast you need those credits. But for the most part, you should be fine if you just follow that simple step, is just look online, get the syllabus, take it to whoever you need to sign off. And then I would say that's pretty much it for the most part about the preparing and getting ready to go abroad. It's not too difficult. It did take me about a year. So I knew going into freshman year that I was gonna study abroad at some point within my career of being a student. So at first, I looked at going to the Czech Republic for a summer just to get international credit. But that didn't work out because it was really expensive just for 8 weeks. I was like, you know what, no, I'll wait. I had a friend that wanted to do an exchange program with me. So I was originally gonna do the, when was it? Spring semester sophomore year, but she was like, no, wait, I'll go with you in the fall. So I was like, okay. So we both signed up to go to the fall to the University of Sussex in Brighton. So I actually had a friend go with me. We both got accepted into the exchange program, which was really nice. But be prepared, because there always might be some kind of like little thing that might not work out, because at first I was gonna be scheduled to go to the University of Essex. And I was like, what's this? But thankfully I took someone's spot that was gonna go to Sussex, and then I ended up at Sussex. I loved it. Sussex is amazing. If you have the chance to go to the University of Sussex or just Brighton in general, I highly recommend. It was lovely, lovely, lovely. Like I said before, I'll talk about all that in another video because there's just so much to it. I have so many pictures I can share, stories, all that good stuff just about Europe. And honestly, I could probably make a video on every single country I visited, because I think I visited 5 in general. And so they each had their own culture, what all I did, how to get around, how to navigate, because I feel like I'm a pro, honestly, at navigation right now. Even though it's been a few years, but I can get around London just fine, which is really awesome. So that's a little skill to have. You can say, oh yeah, my direction skills are amazing or something. But yeah, so study abroad was awesome. You'll be very jet lagged when you arrive, so get ready to rest for a few days. I literally passed out when I arrived, and I was just so tired because of the time difference. But usually there would be an orientation period for international students, which is nice. And then we arrived, I think, 2 weeks before classes started. So the first week we just had time to like explore this town, get used to it, get adjusted. And then the second week was orientation week. So that's when you get to like actually choose your classes. You then get adjusted to campus and all that fun like campus-y type stuff that they do for international students and just students in general. I don't really have any tips necessarily for studying abroad once you're over there, because I don't know, just be yourself, be safe, like most people say. Stay in pairs, don't go anywhere necessarily alone. I went alone places because probably I am a guy. So I have that going for me, I guess you could say. So if you are a girl, you might want to be a little bit weary wherever you go. Just go to the State Department's website if you're from the US or wherever you're from and see what kind of like precautions they say take. But honestly, I never witnessed anything bad. I traveled to locations like other countries alone, and so like I never felt anything off or a little awkward. If I did get into a situation though, I'd like call up a friend that was also studying abroad. I'd just like talk to them on the phone, be like, hey, like here I am, blah blah blah, and like just talk to them while I was on the public transit, or if the city had Wi-Fi or something like that, I'd just talk to them while I could. But I also traveled with friends, or I met friends in another country, which is nice. So you can also think about that so that you aren't alone. And honestly, it depends on you. I had fun both alone and not alone. When I was alone, I was typically in England, so I'd go up to London, or I went to Bristol, Bath, to the western side of Britain. So I never felt anything off, I guess, but that's just me. But always just be cautious, be wary, because you never know what might happen. Just be conscious of where you are. That's one of the main things. Just know your surroundings. Thankfully, like, I knew my town really well, so if anything were to happen, like I knew where to go and all this good stuff. And always have maps on your phone. So I had an app called, oh gosh, I don't even remember, but it's an app where you can just download the map and you can use it offline, so you don't need like data or internet to use it. I think you can also do that with Google Maps. I don't know about Apple Maps necessarily, but it's always handy to have, especially if you're traveling to a new location, just to have that map on your phone so that you know where to go, and it tells you like how to get around and all that. So that was honestly really handy, especially when I was trying to go from like an airport or train station, get to wherever I was staying or a certain location. Especially in London, it was really handy. So that's always something to keep in mind. I didn't use the like international cell service stuff, which, was it smart? I don't know. My friends did, so they were able to call like their parents whenever they want, and like when we arrived, like they had like a SIM card that you get in England to use for international calls or just in domestic calls for England, things like that. I never did that, so I just used Wi-Fi wherever I went. So I'd literally go to the grocery store, use their free Wi-Fi, talk on the phone while I was buying groceries, or even like on the public transit, or even at the university or hotel I was staying in. Like I would always use the Wi-Fi to call. I wouldn't say that's necessarily smart to do, especially if you're gonna be out and about all the time. I would say probably get a SIM card for wherever you're going. Just to be on the safe side so that nothing does happen. If something does, you can always call for an emergency. Yeah, so I learned that. I didn't learn that the hard way. It was just different, that's for sure. And then I guess my final piece of advice is just actually immerse yourself into that culture. Try as much as you can to fit in. I always say, when I heard the American accent, I would just walk away. I was like, no, y'all stay away from me. I'm American, yes, I know, but I'm in a foreign country. I don't want to be associated with y'all. Goodbye. But honestly, it's also comforting when you hear that American accent, because you're like, oh, another American, like I can relate to them. So I remember I was actually outside the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam, and I remember hearing the American accent. I was like, oh, hey, like, are y'all from America? And they're like, yeah, we're from New York, we're teachers. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm from Arkansas, and I'm a student, blah, 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 blah. So that, they were friendly. They were really friendly. I enjoyed them. But other than that, I just tried to stay away from Americans as much as possible. When I was in China, I don't think I ever saw any Americans, which was nice. Shanghai had a lot of international people, because it's an international city, so you saw a lot of like white people, but they were not American. So if you walk up speaking English to them, they'd be like, what are you saying? So not everyone you meet is gonna speak English, I guess you could also say, so just be wary of that too. Be considerate of where you go. Don't try and stand out from the crowd necessarily. Don't be like, oh yeah, I'm American, look at me. No, don't do that. Just be yourself, honestly. Just have a good time, but don't get too crazy, because you don't want to get locked up abroad. There's a whole show about that, I'm pretty sure. because that'd be really bad, and I do not suggest that. That's a very big disclaimer. Do not get locked up and all this other stuff, because it's just a whole big mess, and you don't want to tell your parents, and you don't want to get the government involved into your little misunderstanding. I always try to get immersed by eating local dishes, cuisines, whatever they had. I would go to some major touristy spots, and then sometimes I'd go to like little smaller museums or areas. So I remember when I was in Bath, I actually went to the Roman bathhouses, because that's, you know, what it's named after. But I also went to the Sally Lunn's Buns, like little house shop thing where the bun originated from. So that was really cool, because I have a whole museum in the basement of like how it was created and who she was and all this cool stuff. So that's also something to remember. And then talk to locals. If they do speak English, they can help you get around. They can have cool stories that you might just want to talk to. I remember I was in Bristol and I was staying at the hostel, and I met this girl from Australia who was just traveling around Europe and then was eventually going to work in London for, I think, a few months or maybe a year or so, just to get like some kind of work permit and stuff while she was traveling. I was like, that's really awesome. So you never know who you might meet. Just be friendly, because you meet some really cool people, honestly. Like, I met people all over that wanted to know more about me and what it was like in America at the time, which, you know how America is. So this was all before 2020. This was back in 2018, I might say, so it's been a few years. Maybe 2018. I think it was 2018. So it's been a while. But yeah, just get involved with the culture wherever you are. That's basically the last thing I have to say. So I hope they all liked this video. I hope it was really informative for the most part. I guess I kind of briefed over some things because I felt like, yes, I'm an ex-peer advisor, but also it's like you need to go talk to your study abroad office yourself, talk to them, get to know them, who they are, and like they'll help you actually in person. This is just like a little informative video telling you what you might want to do, suggestions, and just to be prepared on if you do want to study abroad, especially in the next, hopefully, year when we can travel again, just to get you ready, get you to start thinking about where you might want to go, especially if you're like an incoming freshman, or maybe like you just want to study abroad for fun, because why not? Because you can. That is all I have this time, and I guess I'll see y'all next week.